we're doing multiple searches and that we're utilizing our partners at the FBI that have some really, great equipment, training, experienced people, all of those things. We're coming at this investigation with from every angle and with everything that we have access to.
We have not been able to locate the child as of yet.
We want answers! We want answers!
Where is Melody Buzzard? The search intensifies for the missing 9-year-old as police are investigating her mother's home. And Barry Morphew back in court today. The accused wife killer out on bail, all thanks to his supporters. We're asking, will his daughters be called to testify? Also this hour, a forensic psychologist on the show explaining how the 6-year-old who shot his teacher should have been tested for psychopathy even at his young age. Plus, we have new release restrictions for the former cheerleader whose newborn was allegedly found dead in a closet. So will this tip the scales of justice in the case against Lake and Snelling? It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Monday morning to you, my friends. Welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. I hope you had a great Halloween weekend. We sure missed you here, and we put together a great show for you. So let's get it started. Grab that cup of coffee. It's time for my opening statement. Tick-tock. It is only a matter of time before Ashlee Buzzard is behind bars, behaving like she doesn't have a care in the world, with nothing helpful to say to federal and state investigators who are working tirelessly to find her missing daughter, tells me everything I need to know. If your child was missing, God forbid, you would go to the ends of the earth to find your baby. Here, this rotten, sorry excuse for a mother is actually pulling down the missing posters of her daughter, Melody. Why? That makes about as much sense as a screen door on a submarine. Unless she had something to do with Melody's disappearance. We know that she was the last person to see Melody alive. At that time, her 9-year-old was wearing a disguise. Why? She then left California with Melody, driving her all the way to Nebraska, but returns home without her. Why? Sounds like she did something to me. At the very least, right now, she is endangering the welfare of her daughter and obstructing justice. So make no mistake about it, legally, she can be arrested last week for those crimes. But investigators seem to want to keep her out of the jail. And they hopefully will have that strategic decision helping them in the long run in the case. But my friends, I'm still of the opinion that she should have been cuffed already. And I hope and I pray that beautiful Melody is alive and will be rescued and brought home. That's my opening statement on this Monday morning. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
How many times was she shot? How many gunshots did you hear? One.
We were quite taken aback. We didn't expect to see so young a suspect.
Abby's hand is never going to be a normal hand. It's not going to be like her other side, but we've got it pretty darn close.
Do you see that same light, that same color in Abby that you used to see?
No.
In Virginia, the civil trial for the teacher who was shot by a 6-year-old student resumes this morning, and we will see if the defense chooses to put on a case. Court gets underway 9 a.m. Eastern time. We're going to go there together live when it does. In California, we've got the sentencing for Jake Harrow expected to happen today at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Remember this guy? He pleaded guilty to murdering his 7-month-old baby, Emmanuel. Baby Emmanuel's remains still haven't been located. Court TV is on the ground in California, and we're going to bring you that hearing live. In Colorado, we've got defendant Barry Morphew with a status conference today at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. This guy is accused of murdering his wife, Suzanne. We're going to talk more about what we can expect to happen today coming up later on this program. But right now, we turn to our top story for you, and that is, where is Melody Buzzard? Her mom, Ashlee, last seen with law enforcement last week as they searched her home. They also searched the rental car that she used to drive Melody to Nebraska. Remember that car? Yes, she came home without her in that car. We know that. And investigators also searched a storage locker.
We're doing multiple searches, and that we're utilizing our partners at the FBI that have some really, great equipment, training, experienced people, all of those things. We're coming at this investigation with from every angle and with everything that we have access to.
Police say they're focusing on a 3-day period between October the 7th and October the 10th, where the 9-year-old was last seen on surveillance footage wearing a wig. Look at this photo. This is at the rental car agency, and this is the last photograph of Melody where we can verify she was, in fact, alive on October the 7th. So this is right when they got the car to take that trip to Nebraska. So how can investigators find Melody and bring her home? Those are the questions we want to get some answers to. Let's bring in our law enforcement experts guest to help us do that. Let's bring in former FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer and retired police lieutenant and former commander of the K-9 unit in Nassau County, Mike Gould. Good morning to you both. All right, Jennifer, let me start with you. So when we think about how they can bring Melody home, I would love for you to weigh in. What do you think ought to be happening right now in this investigation, please?
Well, I think the #1 way is following that digital footprint across the country. Look, we have a vehicle that is a late model vehicle that will have some GPS information in it. There's already information that she's been sighted at multiple locations on the outbound trip. And so all of those locations and where she was seen, what route they took, gas stops, food stops, all of that is going to be found. And the FBI has a cadre of hundreds of analysts that are looking this over, and they're going to be the key, I think, to figuring out where that last stop was in Nebraska.
Oh, great insight, Jen. Thank you for that. Lieutenant Gould, you're also a K-9 expert. Are we calling in the dogs on this one?
We will eventually, sadly. Obviously, this is obviously foul play when a mother doesn't or is uncooperative. I mean, that is a huge red flag. Of course, I agree with Jennifer. Technology, toll, license plate readers, GPS, cell phone pings. This is all going to locate or develop the evidence in this case. I agree with you again, Julie, as always, that I'm surprised she has not been arrested for child endangerment, just for the fact that the Melody wasn't in school for so long. And I would think personally they would have more leverage with an incarcerated person than they would with somebody, but they may have reasons to want to follow her whereabouts and keep her under surveillance. But I thought it was unusual that they don't have her in custody. I also think it's unusual that they took her away from the scene for so long. I don't know, Jennifer may shed some light on that, but I would think that's a detention. Usually the search warrant is for property, not a person, and for her to be escorted off the scene like that for several hours is unusual.
Let's talk about that. I'm so glad to hear you say that, Lieutenant. I thought that was weird as well. They just said we took her to an undisclosed location. Look, if they're searching the house and they don't have a warrant for her, not that they couldn't get one, as we were talking about, you know, they just want to search it, why not let her stay there? Jen, would you weigh in on that, please?
Yes, I agree with the lieutenant. First of all, it is very unusual when you serve a search warrant that the party is escorted off and leaves. And remember, this search took many, many hours. I think the FBI is utilizing a technique of honey versus vinegar. In other words, with this mother, they realize how important a witness she is, and they are going to try to glean information they can from her, even if it's unwitting information she's providing, by being around her, establishing rapport, and hoping she slips and provides information.
Oh, that's really helpful, Jen. Thank you. I want to play a clip for both of you. This is Melodee's half-sister. She has a half-sister who's a good bit older than her, and she goes and she approaches Melodee's mom at the house begging for answers. Her name is Karina Meza. Let's take a look at this together.
Ashlee, it's Karina. I just want to see if you're okay. If Melodee's okay, how you guys are doing. Do you have the time to speak with me?
And watch here. Let's keep watching the video. Look what she does. She's going to shut the door right in Karina's face and not answer any questions. Lieutenant Gould, I want to lean into the last point you made about leverage with this woman and how we're in agreement that if she was locked up, there may be some more leverage than right now where she's still got her freedom. Tell me, what, if anything, can you do at this point with her if you're law enforcement?
Yeah, just kind of keep pressure on her. Obviously, they can't yet interrogate her or interview her, I should say. So they just have to keep pressure on her. As I said earlier, I think having her incarcerated or in detention would give them more leverage. You know, good interviewers, good interrogators can really get a lot of information when somebody's isolated from their community. But I think that the FBI has their rationale. Regarding the use of the dogs, once there's a location that she was last seen, and I know that rental car place was one of them, that's when dogs would become very instrumental in trying to locate her whereabouts. Did she get back into a car? They could track her movements very well. But it's probably a little premature. I think there'll be more evidence of her exact location as days go by, and then canines would definitely be used in missing persons.
That's really helpful to know. Lieutenant, thank you for that. Jen Coffin-Duffer, let me go back to you, please. This is upsetting to think about, but this is just the reality. The likelihood that Melody is still alive. What do you say, please?
Well, this case reminds me, it really mirrors the Catherine Hoggle case. I don't know if you remember this case. It was from 2014, where her mother basically did exactly what's happening here. Her children were missing, couldn't be found. The mother didn't cooperate. She had a lot of mental health issues. Ultimately, finally, just this year, she was charged with murdering the two children who have still never been found. She's still not cooperating and is in and out of mental institutions. And I think the mental issue with her mother is one of the other reasons they have not arrested her yet. They could throw her in dependency court and make a judge make her testify, and they're not even doing that.
Ooh, that's an excellent point. Jen, thank you for that. Lieutenant Gould, I'd love to bounce a theory of mine off of you, please. This is not something we have information on, so I want to be very clear. But this is just where my mind went when I heard that she was driven to Nebraska. I said it on the show last week and want to resurrect the point with you. I fear that this could be a trafficking situation. And why I say that is if mom wanted to commit a homicide, why not do it at home? Why take the time to rent a car, spend that money, drive her child to Nebraska? What's in Nebraska? Who's going there? Why? There must have been some reason. And I'm wondering if her child could have been sold. Your thoughts on that, please, Lieutenant?
Yeah. Well, frankly, Julie, that's just such a disturbing thought that I didn't actually think of it that way, because it's just it's incomprehensible that a mother would do that to her 9-year-old child. But yeah, there is going to be evidence found. There was a reason they rented the car. This is not looking good at all. I mean, the child had that photograph is 2 years old. There's so many unusual aspects of this. But things are not looking good. But I do think it's going to be resolved. She will be arrested, just a matter of time. And hopefully she'll give us some more insight into where Melody is or her location.
I sure hope so. I sure hope so. Boy, Lieutenant Mike Gould, Special Agent Jennifer Coffin-Duffer, we could talk to you both all day about this. We'll leave it here for now and report any breaking news with Melody Buzzard. Thank you both for your expertise this morning. We're going to hit a break. Friends at home, don't go anywhere except to maybe get a little more coffee. You're going to want to come right back. Here's what's next.
So she was asleep in the bed when you left. Did you say bye to her or anything? No, she's asleep. Okay. Always leave it. So the last time you probably actually saw her was this morning. That was it, right?
Yeah, I've been here. I got a big job up there. I've been here all day.
Accused killer Barry Morphew in court today. His daughter standing by his side in the case where he's accused of murdering their mother. Will they be forced to testify against him? We'll talk about that. Plus, a forensic psychologist joins us on the program to talk about the 6-year-old child and what tests should have been done on him to detect psychopathy.
Here you are, responsible for the lifelong torment of an entire family. Is that evil in your mind now? So now you've taken her mother's life. and you heroically step in to console her.
I knew it was wrong, but I still did it.
Did you murder her mother to try and drive her back into your arms? Oh my God.
Interview with a Killer. New episode Saturday night at 8 Eastern and Pacific. Only on Court TV.
The grand jury has indicted Barry Morphew on the single count of murder in the first degree. Law enforcement, the Chaffee County community, and Colorado as a whole has never stopped fighting for justice for Suzanne.
Now for what's trending in true crime, the Colorado man accused of murdering his wife due back in court today. And we're wondering if his daughters will be forced to testify against him. In June, Morphew was arrested for the second time for allegedly murdering his wife, Suzanne. Prosecutors had dropped the case after the first charging. Now, go back to Mother's Day 2020. That's how old this case is. That is when Suzanne was first reported missing. Her remains were discovered more than 3 years later. Supporters recently raised $300,000 that was needed to cover Barry Morphew's bond. He was in a $3 million bond, and the judge had modified those conditions. Let's watch.
If Mr. Morphew posts bond through a surety and then absconds, he not only has $300,000 on the line, there's also a bail bonds person who would be tracking him down. And if he chose to post a cash-only option, then he would have $3 million on the line.
Morphew's two daughters, Mallory and Macy, beautiful young ladies, have supported their father ever since their mother's disappearance. But now they're listed as potential witnesses in the case for the state of Colorado. So we're asking, will his devoted daughters have to testify against Dad? Let's bring in our legal eagles. What a power panel this is. Two very high-profile attorneys on the show today. Ben Chu, celebrity attorney. We saw him in action winning the landmark case, Depp versus Heard. And Mario Gallucci, criminal defense attorney and also a former prosecutor. Good morning to you, gentlemen. Thanks for being on the show. Oh, boy. So let's talk about these daughters and the likelihood that the state of Colorado will call them. Mario, what do you think the likelihood is?
So the state has subpoena power, so they could subpoena them to a hearing, to a trial, but it's very unusual for a prosecutor to subpoena somebody to testify without knowing what they're going to say. So although they can compel them to testify at a hearing, you know, they can't compel them to speak to them. So they could put them on the stand, but if they don't know what the answer to the question is, it's very unlikely that they would put them on the stand to testify at a hearing without knowing the answers to the questions. I mean, it's a tactic we use all the time as defense attorneys. You know, you could subpoena somebody to testify in a grand jury, you could subpoena them to testify at a trial, but if they're represented, I'm not allowing you to speak to my client before they go into the grand jury. I'm not allowing you to speak to my client before they testify at a hearing or a trial. So for the state to call them and not know what they're going to say would be very unusual.
A great insight, Mario. What about just the optics of seeing them supporting Dad in the courtroom? Ben Chu, I want to go to you on that. What impact does that have on the members of the jury if they see these two beautiful young ladies sitting right behind Dad, indicating their unwavering support?
Julie, I agree with the tenor of your question. I think it would be enormously impactful to the jury. And as Mario was suggesting, it would be a tremendous risk for the prosecution to put those two lovely daughters on and have them fight with the prosecution and show sympathy to their father. You're going to influence a few, if not several, of the jurors and lead them to reasonable doubt.
Great points, Ben. I want to go to something that really, let's take a step back. We have to think about it's the burden on the state, as you both know. Do they even need to call the daughters? I mean, maybe in an abundance of caution, they're putting their names on this list, but you both know when you assess your witnesses for a case, you think about, okay, is this testimony essential or is it not? Is the juice going to be worth the squeeze? Mario, what do you say in terms of the proof? Harkening back to your time as a prosecutor, do you think the daughters are essential?
I mean, we don't have any evidence that the daughters know anything about the mother's disappearance and then her death. So without knowing any of that information, it'd be highly unlikely, unless they have something that we're unaware of. I mean, all the time we put people on lists, witness lists, because you don't know what's going to happen at the trial. So if there's testimony at the trial about something that the daughters may have information about, then you could call the daughter, and now they're on the witness list. There are also going to be names you're going to hear during a trial. So you want to alert the jurors that you're going to hear potential names at the trial. The two daughters' names will be mentioned during a trial. Does anybody know these people? Do you know anything about them? So during jury selection, you're going to want to, eliminate those people that may have a relationship with these daughters if they're going to be hearing their names.
Great points, Mario. I want to play you both a clip. This is one I just cannot get out of my head. I'm wondering if Barry Morphew's own statements and behavior are going to be what sinks him without the testimony of his girls. Let's play the clip where he's talking with investigators and he throws it out there that maybe it was a mountain lion who harmed Suzanne.
Is it a crash?
I mean, the bike looked, the way it was laying, it kind of looked like it, but there's not really that much damage to the bike. That's the thing.
Lion?
Yeah, it was just like lion.
No lion?
I didn't see anything that would indicate.
Interesting he mentioned wildlife. Let's go back to some other facts that might be damaging to Barry Morphew. So Ben Shu, I want to go to you on this, please. After the withdrawal of the charges the first time, the prosecutors got some more information on the autopsy of Suzanne, and they found in her body something really interesting, something that's called BAM. It's an animal tranquilizer. And investigators did some digging, and they found that through the years 2017 to 2020, no other private citizen or private business in the state of Colorado had purchased BAM. Barry Morphew had a needle cap from a BAM tranquilizer in the dryer in his house. Law enforcement said he dried the shorts he was wearing on the day of Suzanne's disappearance. The only other folks that had BAM or purchased it were Colorado Parks and Wildlife agencies, the National Park Service. Ben Shu, how damaging do you think this fact is for him?
I think, Julie, that is enormously damaging circumstantial evidence of his guilt. And then the cap itself, of course, is physical evidence, actual evidence of his guilt. And I don't think it will be hard for the jury to connect the dots. And just going back to the question about the daughters, I think they would be able to subliminally make the argument that, these girls have already lost their mother, don't take their father from them.
Ooh, right. Mario, yeah, I would think about that as a prosecutor. If you can avoid putting someone through some trauma and you really don't need them, they're not essential to the case, why do that, right? These girls have already been victimized by these circumstances.
Well, you wouldn't unless you think they do have the information that you want. Then you would put some pressure on them that way. So I've done that. When I was a prosecutor, I would do things like that all the time. If I thought that the person had information, you put whatever legal pressure you can on them, and maybe they will end up testifying for you or give you information that'll help you get a conviction.
Right. How about how all these people raised money for him? So he was in on $3 million bond, a percentage bond. So it means if you post 10% of that, which is what's typical, then you can get out of the jail while you're waiting trial. And so people donated $300,000 for this guy. My mind is blown at that. Ben Shu, what do you think, please?
My mind was blown as well. I can't imagine anyone funding the bail for the release of this man in light of the evidence that's come around. Obviously, he's entitled to the presumption of innocence, but that's a far cry between that and giving him his day in court and actually donating money so that he can get out of prison. It's mind-blowing.
Right. I'm just scratching my head at this. And today's going to be a status conference. His defense team is expected to let the court know just how much more time they're going to need to prepare for trial. So hopefully we will have a firm trial date very soon. Great discussion with you both. As always, you're coming along for more of the show. Mario Gallucci, Ben Chu, stand by, please. Friends at home, don't you go away either. Here's what's coming up next for you on Opening Statements.
Stepped through the door and there was a young child attempting to be restrained by a woman. Later found out was Amy Kovac, the reading teacher. We were quite taken aback. We didn't expect to see so young a suspect.
So why did a 6-year-old student have a gun in the first place? A forensic psychology expert joins me live next to talk about it. Plus, release restrictions for the former University of Kentucky cheerleader, Laken Snelling.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Brandon Marshall on behalf of call number 80, Laken Snelling.
Dates are, this Friday the 5th, 12th, the 19th, or 26th if you want to wait time.
26th, and we will wait time, sir.
Ms. Snelling, you just heard your attorney state that it's your desire to waive this matter to the Fayette County Grand Jury. You understood you got a right to have a preliminary hearing this morning, but it is your desire to waive this matter at this time. Okay. I know that you have posted in electronic monitoring, residing with parents, all of that's still in place, correct? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Now for what's tipping the scales of justice in the case against former University of Kentucky cheerleader Laken Snelling. Snelling's newborn baby was found dead in a trash bag inside of her closet back in August. The 22-year-old now has to wear an ankle monitor as she waits to learn whether she'll be indicted by a grand jury. Her pretrial detention is now happening at the home of her father in Tennessee, as opposed to splitting time between both of her parents. She's accused of abuse of a corpse, tampering with evidence, and concealing the birth of an infant. But she hasn't been charged with murder, as the baby's cause of death is said to be inconclusive. So let's talk about whether these new pretrial release restrictions are going to tip the scales of justice in any way for the former cheerleader. Let's bring back in our legal eagles, high-profile attorneys Mario Gallucci and Ben Chu. Okay, Mario, let's start with trial prep. When you have a client who's at home, what a difference does that make?
It makes a tremendous difference. It is so difficult to visit your clients when they are incarcerated. Between setting up a video conference or actually going to a jail is a tremendous, tremendous effort. When they're home, they could come to the office. The bail conditions allow her to visit with her lawyer. So all you have to do is alert the judge and the monitoring people that, you know, Laken's got an appointment in my office today at 3 o'clock. She needs an hour to get there. And after the meeting, which is going to be 2 hours, she needs an hour to get home. So you get a 4-hour window with them. So it makes trial prep much, much easier for everybody involved.
Yeah, for sure, Mario. So Laken Snelling informed the University of Kentucky that she will no longer be attending the school the day that she had her initial arraignment. So she's out of school right now, just kind of in limbo. And Ben Chu, I'm wondering, is the university in any kind of legal limbo as well? As she was on this stunt team doing very risky stunts, going up to the air, catching other teammates while she was visibly pregnant. Here's a photo of her. We can see here, this is from USA Cheer. So this is a competitive team where lots of stunting, jumping, catching, throwing. And look at this. Look at where her teammate's head lands when she catches her up in the air. I mean, the strength that it takes, and the head seems to be right on the baby bump. Ben, I'm just wondering if the school ought to be concerned about a lawsuit. What do you say, please?
Julie, that is a fascinating question, and I think the answer to that is yes. Certainly, had there been an accident during the practice, they could have been liable for any accident that occurred. They could, as your question suggests, there could be some implication in the causation of the baby's death, that Lakin's counsel could argue that somehow that the child was somehow damaged by this activity. So yes, the university should be extremely concerned. The university also has to avoid any comment or taking any position on the underlying case and not to prejudge it, because I think you'll remember in the Duke lacrosse scandal that Duke University was sued as a result of their taking a position in that case.
That's a really good comparison, Ben. Thank you for that. Mario, I want to go through some of the details in the affidavit with you now, please. So we know it was a baby boy that she gave birth to on the floor of her bedroom at 4 a.m. She told investigators that she passed out and then she fell on top of the baby, she said. She said she noticed the baby was blue when she woke up. She said she then went back to sleep, woke up again, wrapped the baby in a towel, put the placenta in a Ziploc bag. She put both the baby and the placenta in a trash bag inside of her closet. She skipped class that day, decided to go to McDonald's instead. While she was away, her roommates went into her room, and that's when they found a blood-soaked towel on the floor and called 911. Mario, your thoughts on those details, please.
Very peculiar, very unusual. Who gives birth to a baby and then, basically kills it and puts it in a closet? It's disturbing. Those are very disturbing facts, especially how she was able to just go to McDonald's after she did that, just leave her room. Her roommates actually said that they heard noises coming from the room, and that's what initially got them very concerned. And when she left is when they went into the room to investigate. So it's very disturbing facts. I had a very similar case about 30 years ago, and it turned out well for me because there were other facts here, but just very disturbing set of facts.
It really is. And Mario, just kind of a follow-up for you, please. If investigators can't get there in the ME's office in making a definitive determination, right now they're just saying the autopsy is inconclusive, how much are the prosecutors going to have to lean on these facts and the witness statements, as you noticed, by friends and others who heard noises and the own statements that Laken Snelling made herself?
So we had this in the Gregor case. The original ME was inconclusive, and the prosecutors then found another medical examiner in New Hampshire, if you remember. So the prosecutors could very likely, move on to another medical examiner, hire an expert to review the medical examiner they have, and come up with their own conclusions. So that they're not precluded from searching out another expert to do another analysis and see if he agrees or she agrees or disagrees.
Right. We know that she's not charged with murder, and we don't know if she will ever be, so I want to make that very clear. We've got tampering with evidence charges, abuse of a corpse, and obstruction charges. Ben, let me ask you, while she's waiting at home, certainly there's enormous media interest in the case, as you know. I'm sure there have been plenty of attempts to speak with her. What advice would you have for her in terms of her behavior while she's on this pretrial detention at Dad's house?
Well, as to speaking to the press, the answer would be threefold: no, no, and no. And I think she should keep an absolutely zero profile and focus 100% on her defense, working with her counsel, determining what that's going to be. And per your and Mario's point, I think they have to come up with some kind of explanation for what I think was the most horrifying detail, which is her going to McDonald's, because I think a juror could kind of accept the idea of what happened in the immediate aftermath of the birth, her shock, passing out, falling on the baby is a little hard to accept. But going to McDonald's considerably after the birth, I think is going to be a really hard pill for the jury to swallow, and they're going to have to argue somehow that this was part of the shock that she was under, that the shock lasted beyond the initial birth.
Right, exactly. Really great points from you both. As per usual, Ben Chu, Mario Gallucci, you both have cases to win. We got to let you get off to court. Thank you so much for your time on opening statements this morning, and thank you at home. Live look now at the courtroom in Virginia. We've got the civil case of the teacher shot by her 6-year-old student, and we're speaking live with a forensic psychology expert next.
Six-year-old shot his teacher. Their side battling that it is part of the job, just outrageous.
The first grader shoots teacher civil trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
Covering the country's biggest trials before we bring you inside the courtroom. Plus, the true crime cases you want to know more about in our daily spotlight.
Opening statements with Julie Grant. Mornings at 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
Welcome back. Let's turn now to the case in Virginia. This is our spotlight, the first grader who shot his teacher. Let's look at his behavior, some very concerning things in his past before that day. Allegations of threatening a student, strangling a teacher, and inappropriately touching a female student. This child had just come off a 2-day-long suspension for violent behavior and then brought a gun back to the school. Let's dig in on those red flags, shall we? Now, what could have been done to assess the child psychologically, even at the age of 6? I want to welcome in a very special guest now to talk about this with us. She's a forensic psychologist, Dr. Leslie Dobson. Dr. Leslie, good morning. Nice to see you. Tell us what could have been done with this child, if you would, please.
It does sound like a lot was being attempted with the parents coming to school every day, but we have some very alarming warning signs of, you can't diagnose a child as a psychopath, but signs that would lead to a child becoming diagnosable in different ways that would eventually lead to a psychopathic adult. So these behaviors are extremely concerning, and there are multiple tests that could have been given to assess the violence or the likelihood that the child would engage in further violence and the severity of what it would be, like bringing a gun to school. In particular, I think about there are these 4 tests, and you can give some of them as early as age 3 years old. We have the inventory of callous and unemotional traits. We have childhood psychopathy scale that could be started at about 8 years old. But the prior one, we can start around age 3 or 4. We're looking for behaviors that align with similar to adult psychopaths. We are looking at emotional responsivity. We are looking at superficial emotions, shallow affect, aggression that we saw, ongoing aggression, criminal versatility. And it is amazing that we are seeing this in a 6-year-old alone, and when he was even younger.
It really is mind-blowing in the worst way, Dr. Leslie. Tell me a little bit more about the tests that could have been done when he was younger and the first few red flags came up, like, for instance, the strangling of a teacher. How do these tests go? What kinds of things happen during them? Would you kind of bring us into the assessment room, if you would?
Definitely. So these aren't normal tests that you would do with an adult, right? A lot of these are going to be bringing in the parents, bringing in the child, and the school. And a lot are questionnaires. So we want to ask everyone similar questions. What is the child's behavior like? What is the home life like? Academic? How is the child's brain functioning? We want to bring in the pediatrician. And then we put this all together and we look at that in comparison to the behaviors that we are seeing, such as that lack of remorse, that desire to harm people, behaviors at home. And we look at all of these as red flags, and we determine proper placement for the child. And it was likely that the placement was not in the school where he was continuously harming and threatening people. Now, it's wonderful his parents were there, but this is why we have structures in place to help children away from harming other potential victims.
Exactly, Dr. Leslie. I want to ask you about something that we've been talking about in our newsroom here at Court TV Network, and that is, what kind of an adult is this child going to become if he's behaving like this at 5 and 6 years old? Kindergarten, first graders, do you think, you know, coloring and all the fun things they get to do, hide and go seek, and then this kid is strangling a teacher, pulling up a little girl's skirt, touching her inappropriately, shooting a teacher in the classroom. What kind of a monster is he going to be later in life?
You know, I can speak to my experience working in state psychiatric facilities and prisons and in jails. And when I work with very extreme psychopathic individuals, many I look back and I see around the age of 3 to 5, they have mutilated animals, they have strangled people, they have harmed their family, they have even ended lives. And so what worries me is that if we don't get proper care for this child and we don't give him everything that we can possibly give him, that he is going to continue along. What we would normally see are ongoing childhood diagnoses. So we would see oppositional defiant disorder coming into play, conduct disorder. The mother's already stated that ADHD was a part of this child. We need more treatment so that it doesn't fully turn into antisocial personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, and the combination of those two with a criminal history tends to load very heavily on what we call the PCLR, the adult psychopathy checklist. And those individuals, as we know, are the most dangerous individuals we have in the world.
Most definitely, Dr. Leslie. This child is doomed if he doesn't straighten up and doesn't get the help he needs. I want to play a clip for you, please. This is from victim Abby Zwerner. So she's the school teacher, as you know, who was shot by this young man. Let's take a look.
And what is the last thing you remember that day at the school?
The last thing I remember at the school, obvious, I thought I was dying. I thought I had died. I thought I was either on my way to heaven or in heaven, but then it all got black, and so I then thought I wasn't going there.
Oh, Abby Zwerner's testimony, so hard to hear, Dr. Leslie, as you know, and she testified to being in trauma therapy. I would imagine she's going to be in it for a long, long time. How about this 6-year-old? Can psychotherapy help him, in your opinion, at this point in time?
I wouldn't say talk therapy or what we would consider normal therapy, but play therapy has been deemed beneficial. Changes to the environmental situation, altering what authority figures are around the child, enhancing the consequences around the child, an extremely structured environment with both rewards and consequences, because at this age, the child will respond more to rewards, and it will shift then to responding more to consequences. So it will need to be, all hands on deck. It will take a village. We can't take our eyes off. And one thing that I fear the most, that I see the most often, is learned helplessness. This child, we're going to forget about him. He's not going to get any better. This is what he'll do. Okay, maybe he won't do anything more. We'll leave him like how he is. No, they usually progress once everyone around them has given up onto committing mass murders, on to causing utter chaos in this world. And so I hope all hands are on deck, and I hope they maintain on deck. And if it means the child is better off in prison because of the containment, so be it.
That's exactly right. Fascinating insight that you've shared with us this morning. Dr. Leslie Dobson, thank you so much for your time and your expertise. It's been a pleasure having you on Opening Statement.